Now that you've seen what I can build,
With a box of scraps!
have you been wondering what I make with no restrictions? Hello all, and welcome to Cube Talk, where I spend some time talking about one of my own creations. Today, I've got the Combat Twobert, a 180 card cube designed around creature combat mattering. Twoberts, as designed by Ryan Overturf, are a fun way to curate small size environments for 2 to 4 players. As it's often hard to corral 8 working adults to one game night, I like designing primarily smaller cubes so that we've got more consistency during draft. I've linked his video on how to build your own in the description down below. So, to get started on design goals, this cube is meant to be a few things: accessible, budget, and aesthetically consistent. I'm aiming for this to feel like a well-curated master's level draft with a budget that doesn't break the bank. This allows me to bring it everywhere without worrying about random strangers taking something valuable. Also, if you're looking for this card case, which is just perfect for Twoberts, this is the Gamegenic Academic 266 Plus from Tolarian Community College. Not a sponsor, just a fantastic product from a positive influence in our community. Because it's budget, it made sense to also match the frames and printings. The base printings are the cheapest that they've ever been, so you can sneak in some really powerful cards into your list. Also, as a bonus, they tend to have reminder text that the special versions just don't. Avoiding foils has a nice side benefit, as a single foil in a pack may catch someone's eye and they may rate it more highly than it deserves. For that reason, even with unlimited budget, I'd be going normal prints anyway. You may notice 1 or 2 cards breaking the mold, and that's just because they're the only ones I had on hand at the time. At some point, I'll pick up the right versions, but for now, this suffices. One last note on the design goals. I'm mostly building this to the Pioneer power level. There are some cards that break that rule, cards I don't feel break the spirit, even if they break the letter. Plus, it'll never really be Pioneer legal anyway, as this cube will always be running this Booster Tutor, my favorite cube card. Designing the Trash to Treasure cube relied heavily on my experience building the Combat cube. I knew the environment would be filled with mid-range creatures, solid synergies with no combos, and few, if any, wraths. Early on, I learned that boards will get gummed up, so players will need a way to break parity. Flying, trample, vigilance, and lifelink are all important here, as tempo is king and card advantage is hard to come by. Now onto specifics. There are a few cards that this cube was built around, some from early design, some from iteration, and some just because I like them. First, to talk about the 2 consistents from when this cube was known as the Migraine Cube: Feather the Redeemed and Ivy Gleeful Spell Thief. The original goal was to make the combat step a headache, and these 2 are great at that. But they've persisted long after I learned that type of cube is fun in theory and painful in practice. They do a great job of signaling what this cube is all about: combat tricks and value earned. Both of these cards care about you targeting your own creatures with instants and sorceries, so Heroic was a natural fit. And if Red is going to be in that lane anyway, it makes sense to supplement with the Is It Prowess deck, filled with cards that are tempo positive. The next edition came about a little after the cube's initial creation. I was playing around with Tamashi, Reality Architect, in my main cube, and it didn't quite match the power level, but was a blast to build around. As the removal in this environment is all sorcery speed anyway, it wasn't hard to move certain effects into enchantments. My favorite of these is Gift of Fangs, a dead weight with a relevant upside. I'm not trying to make this into a Kindred cube, but whenever a card has types that matter, I'll always give it a second look. Another typal synergy worth looking for is Party. Introduced in Zendikar Rising and promptly forgotten about by Wizards, this mechanic works well because so many of the creatures you'd like to be running anyway fall into one of the 4 classes. There's only a couple payoff cards, like Squad Commander and Nimble Trapfinder, so don't think of this as a main course, but a dessert. Fairly recently, I added a card in that, by itself, made me rework the entire mana base, along with the budget. Essence Channeler is a very strong card, being better than an Ajani Pridemate with relevant creature type to boot. It needed no tweaks with creatures to support this in Orzhov, but I wanted the first line to be an active threat. So I pulled out the Sharpie Duels, cards that I modified to make the mana good on a budget. Your cube, your rules, but my players certainly didn't mind having great mana, even if they had some lines on them. Those came out for the Painlands, a natural fit, even though it basically doubles the cost. Booster Tutor. As mentioned, this card is my absolute favorite cube card. Cube Cobra has a feature where you can maybe board some cards. I use this space for my cubes for cards that were just cut, or ones that I plan on trying out. But if I'm going to have them anyway, why not use them? The drafter that runs this card gets the chance to play with some really cool synergy pieces that no one else would have even seen. I find it a lot of fun, and for me it's an instant pack one, pick one. Now, for a couple of quick hits. Kythian, Hero of Akros, and Liliana, Heretical Hero. The only planeswalkers in this cube requires you to put in some work to get them. Moon Circuit Hacker is the lone ninja to survive. Early on, it was a complete theme, but as the space in blue and black shifted, I had to find a place for it. I wouldn't be surprised to be re-adding this at some point in the future, though. Ninjas are fun. Balustrade Worm is one of my newest additions, replacing Thragtusk. I do and did love what Thragtusk can do, but I scaled back the life gain when an Abzan control deck wiped the floor against Izzet Wizards. Speaking of, Sunspine Links was added at the same time for the same reason. I see life gain as a good stonewall against tempo, so that the faster deck doesn't always win. But without comeback mechanics like board wipes or planeswalkers, this seemed to be next in the natural progression. Archangel of Wrath has been the face of this cube since it was released. I want this card to be always good but never broken, somewhere in the middle of the power level bell curve. Gonti is just fun, same with Robber of the Rich. Who among us doesn't like playing off the top of your opponent's library? As you saw in my first series, I love Abiding Grace. This card is so slow, but if you're able to reanimate a 1-drop, it's not a total loss. Plus, here's a Hope of Girapur. This cube is always changing, iterating for whatever my flavor of the month is. Usually things will come in here when I'm drafting the current set, but it has been a bit since I've been able to. As mentioned, I've been thinking about ninjas again, also possibly landfall, as I already run the bounce lands. Tarkir had a bunch of cards I was interested in as well, so once I buy some more, I'll be adding them in. Okay, that's going to wrap things up here. The full list is in the description if you're curious to check it out. Stay tuned, the next video is going to be a draft of this cube, where I'll teach you how to houseman draft, featuring my wife. Also, if you're watching this before May 26th, 2025, remember to go back to the Trash to Treasure playlist and drop a comment. There's going to be a raffle of this cube to those in North America that you certainly don't want to miss. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.